The cup slipped from Maya Johnson's fingers before she even realized she'd stood up. Coffee splashed across the marble floor of Cloud 9 Cafe, dark liquid blooming like a stain she couldn't erase. Her heart slammed violently against her ribs, ears ringing so loudly she barely heard the gasp from the barista or the scrape of chairs as people turned to look, because standing in front of her, tall, immaculately dressed, eyes cold and unreadable, was Seo Jae-won. Her boss, the man everyone in Luminor Gallery whispered about behind closed doors, the man whose presence made seasoned art dealers straighten their backs and lower their voices, the man who never smiled. And yet, the same man whose voice had murmured, "I miss you," into her earbuds at 2 in the morning. Her phone vibrated in her trembling hand. One new message. Echo. "I'm here." Maya's breath shattered. "No," she whispered, backing away from the table. "No, this isn't funny. This isn't." Jaewon's gaze flicked down to her phone, then back to her face. Slowly, deliberately, he pulled his own phone from his pocket and unlocked it. He turned the screen toward her. Their chat thread stared back at her. 6 months of messages, voice notes, late-night confessions, inside jokes, dreams she'd only ever spoken out loud to one person. Him. "I told you I'd recognize you instantly," he said quietly. "You always wear that ring when you're nervous." Her knees nearly buckled. You're not Echo," she said, voice cracking. "You can't be. Echo is kind. He laughs. He listens." "I am Echo," Jae-won replied. "And I am him." The cafe felt too small, too bright, too many eyes. She turned sharply, ready to run, but his hand closed around her wrist. Not rough, not tight, just enough to stop her. "Don't," he said. "Please." That word, please, destroyed her, because she knew that voice, had memorized every inflection of it. And that was when the story truly began. Before you judge Maya, before you decide what you would have done, pause for a second. If you showed up to meet the man you'd fallen in love with online, and discovered he was your boss, feared, powerful, untouchable, would you stay or would you run? Comment below right now. And if you love stories about forbidden romance, dangerous mafia bosses, and the least expected black women who make powerful men fall hard, subscribe. You don't want to miss this. Maya finally yanked her hand free, chest heaving. "You lied to me," she said. "Every single day." Jae-won shook his head slowly. "No, I never lied. I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing." His jaw tightened. "I never pretended to be someone else. I was myself with you, more than I've ever been with anyone." Her laugh came out sharp, hysterical. "You terrorize people for a living. I protect what's mine. I wasn't yours." His eyes softened, and that scared her more than anything else. "You were never mine," he said. "You chose me. Every night. Every call." She swallowed hard, memories flooding her mind. The photography forum where they'd met, his comments on her black and white city shots, the way he'd encouraged her, listened when she talked about feeling invisible at work. She'd never known she was talking about him. "You recognized me," she said suddenly. "Didn't you?" "Yes," her stomach twisted. "When?" "2 months ago." The betrayal sliced deeper than she expected. "And you didn't think to tell me?" "I didn't want to take your choice away," he said. "You loved Echo, not Seo Jae-won." Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. People were staring now, whispering. She grabbed her coat. "I can't do this. I'll drive you home." "No, I won't touch you," he said immediately. "I swear." She hesitated, against her better judgment. She nodded. The car ride was quiet at first, the city lights streaking past the tinted windows. Jae-won's presence filled the space even when he said nothing. "You were different at work," she said finally. "Yes. Cold, cruel. Careful," she scoffed. "You made my hands shake." "I noticed." That made her turn. And you said nothing? I wanted you safe. From what? From me. Her throat tightened. You think I didn't feel it? He continued. Every time you avoided my office. Every time your voice dropped when you spoke to me. She stared at the dashboard. You scare me. I know. The car slowed to a stop outside her apartment. If you want, he said softly, I will disappear. I'll delete the account, change my number. You'll never hear my voice again. Her chest ached at the thought. And if I don't? She whispered. His eyes darkened. Then nothing will ever be the same. She opened the door and stepped out without answering. As the car drove away, her phone buzzed again. Echo. Whatever you decide. I'm yours. Maya slid down the door of her apartment and cried until her chest hurt. She didn't see the black SUV parked across the street. She didn't see the man inside watching her door. And she didn't know that this was only the beginning. Some meetings change your life. Others mark you for death. Tell me, if you were Maya, would you answer his next call? Maya didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard his voice again. Soft, patient, familiar. Whatever you decide, I'm yours. She hated herself for the way her body reacted to that sentence, for how her chest tightened, for how part of her wanted to call him back and pretend the truth didn't exist. The next morning at Luminor Gallery, the air felt heavier. Whispers followed her down the marble corridor. She kept her head down, fingers clenched around her tablet, repeating one thing in her mind. Be invisible. Just survive the day. But invisibility had never existed around Seo Jae-won. Miss Johnson, her spine stiffened. She turned slowly. He stood outside his office, suit perfectly pressed, expression unreadable. To anyone else, it was the same man they feared and obeyed. To her, it was Echo wearing a mask. Come in, he said calmly. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to run. Yet her feet moved anyway. The door closed behind them with a soft click that sounded too final. I won't keep you long, Jae-won said. He didn't sit. Neither did she. I just wanted to say, I meant what I told you. She crossed her arms. About disappearing? Yes. Her laugh was hollow. You say that like it's easy. It's not, he replied. But loving you doesn't give me the right to destroy your peace. She stared at him, anger flaring. You already did. Pain flickered across his face before the mask slid back into place. Then, let me fix it. Before she could respond, his phone rang. The shift was instant. The warmth vanished. His posture sharpened. His eyes turned lethal. Yes, he said in Korean. Maya caught fragments, harsh whispers. A name she didn't recognize. Blood. Her stomach dropped. I'll handle it, Jae-won finished. He ended the call and looked at her. You should go home early today. What was that? She demanded. Nothing you need to worry about. That's what everyone says before something explodes. His jaw tightened. Please, that word again. She left without another word. It was raining when it happened. Maya had just stepped out of a convenience store near her apartment when tires screeched behind her. Shouts, chaos, gunshots shattered the night. She screamed, dropping her bag as people scattered. A body slammed into her, knocking her to the ground. Stay down! Jae-won. He shielded her with his body as more shots rang out. She felt him tense, heard a sharp grunt against her ear. Then silence. Sirens wailed in the distance. He collapsed beside her, blood soaking through his shirt. No, 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 she sobbed, pressing her hands to his wound. Stay with me. His eyes fluttered open. I told you. I'd protect you. Everything after that blurred. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Maya sat rigid in a plastic chair as men in black suits moved in and out of the hallway, eyes scanning every corner. You shouldn't be here, one of them muttered. She ignored him. When they finally let her see Jae-won, her breath caught. He looked smaller somehow, pale, vulnerable. She took his hand. "You're an idiot," she whispered. "Do you know that?" His lips curved faintly. "Only for you." Tears slid down her cheeks before she could stop them. "I never wanted this," she said. "This life. This danger." "I know." "Then why did you choose me?" "Because you made me forget who I was, supposed to be." Her chest ached. He told her everything then. About inheriting an empire soaked in blood at 22. About giving up his dream of photography. About how Echo was the only place he felt human. Before she could respond, the door burst open. Gunfire erupted. Men shouted. Glass shattered. Jae-won pushed her behind the bed, grabbing a weapon from under the mattress. "Don't move," he ordered. She watched in horror as he fought. Injured, furious, unstoppable. When it was over, bodies lay still. And Maya realized something terrifying. She wasn't just in love with him. She was already in too deep. If you were Maya, after seeing this side of him, would you stay? Or would you finally run? Comment below. And if this story has your heart racing, hit subscribe now. They moved her that night. No explanations, no arguments. Just a long drive into the mountains, where a secluded lodge waited beneath falling snow. "This is temporary," Jae-won said as a doctor stitched his wound, until things calmed down. "Do they ever?" she asked. "No." Silence settled between them. Later, when the painkillers dulled his guard, she noticed the tattoos along his ribs, symbols of wings, chains breaking. "Freedom," she murmured. His eyes met hers. "That's what they mean." Something shifted between them then, fragile, intense. When he kissed her, it was slow, reverent, like he was afraid she'd vanish. For a moment, the world felt distant, too distant, because someone else was watching. Someone who knew her name, and who had just sold it to the highest bidder. Would you trust the man who almost died for you? Or fear the ones who want you dead? Subscribe and comment. The betrayal is coming. Maya woke the next morning to her phone buzzing non-stop. Messages, missed calls. A notification headline burned into her screen. "Mysterious woman linked to Seo Jae-won exposed." Her photo stared back at her. Her real name. Her life. Destroyed. A scandal? She is in trouble. She dropped the phone. Outside the room, Jae-won was already screaming someone's name, and Maya knew. Nothing would ever be the same again. When love makes you a target, who pays the price? The phone kept buzzing on the floor like it was alive. Maya stared at it, heart pounding so hard it made her dizzy. Her hands felt numb, like they didn't belong to her anymore. Her face was everywhere. Leaving the gallery, entering her apartment, sitting at Cloud 9 Cafe. The caption beneath one photo made her stomach turn. Unidentified woman linked romantically to feared businessman Seo Jae-won. Romantically? That was what they called it when men died for less. She stood on shaky legs and stepped into the hallway. Jae-won's voice thundered through the lodge. "Bring him to me," he said, every word dripping with something dark and lethal. Alive. Dae-shik stood rigid in front of him. It was Hyun Park. Maya froze. Hyun Park. The quiet one. The man who always nodded politely when he brought files to the gallery. The one who'd once held the door open for her when her hands were full. Jae-won went still. "How long?" he asked. "Months," Dae-shik replied. "He sold routes, names, locations." "And her?" Jae-won asked quietly. Dae-shik hesitated. "He gave them her identity yesterday." Maya felt the room tilt. Yesterday. While she was kissing Jae-won. While she thought she was safe. She took a step back, heart cracking open. Jae-won turned sharply. "Maya, don't," she said, voice shaking. "Just don't." His expression crumpled. "This is my fault," he said. "I brought you into this." "You didn't bring me," she snapped. "I walked in. I chose you." "And now they'll use you to get to me," he replied. eyes blazing with self-hatred. I won't allow that. Fear wrapped around her spine. What does that mean? He didn't answer immediately. That scared her more than anything else. That night, the lodge felt like a prison. Men patrolled outside. Phones rang constantly. Daeshik whispered updates she wasn't meant to hear. She sat on the bed, knees pulled to her chest, replaying everything. Her mother's voice if she saw the news, her friend's confusion, the way her life had cracked open in a single headline. The door opened quietly. Jae-won stepped inside. He didn't look like Echo anymore. He looked like a king preparing for war. "You need to leave," he said. Her heart stuttered. "What?" "Tonight," he continued. "I'll have Daeshik take you somewhere safe. Somewhere they won't find you." Her throat burned. "And you?" "I'll deal with this." "No," she said, standing. "You don't get to decide that alone." "I do," he snapped. "Because I'm the reason you're in danger." "That's not true." "It is," he said harshly. "If you stay, they will hurt you to punish me." "And if I leave," she demanded, "what happens to you?" Silence. That was answer enough. "So this is it," she whispered. "You almost died for me. And now you're sending me away." "Yes." Tears spilled over. "Say it again." He clenched his fists. "You don't belong in my world." Her chest shattered. "You don't mean that." "I do," he lied. She heard it, felt it. But lies still hurt. "Then look at me," she said, "and tell me you never loved me." He couldn't. The seconds stretched painfully. Finally, she nodded, wiping her tears with shaking hands. "Okay," she said. "I'll go." His breath hitched. She walked past him without another word. The car ride was silent. Maya stared out the window as the lodge disappeared behind them, her reflection fractured in the glass. When the car stopped at a quiet guest house hours later, she didn't look back. She went inside and closed the door on the only man she'd ever loved. 2 days passed. She didn't eat much, didn't answer calls. The world outside buzzed with speculation, rumors, half-truths. Then there was a knock. Daeshik stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat. "He's not okay," he said. She crossed her arms. "He pushed me away." "He's dismantling half his operations," Daeshik replied. "Started a war with his own allies to protect you." Her heart clenched painfully. "He hasn't slept, barely speaks," Daeshik continued. "You were the first person who ever made him hesitate." "That's not enough," she whispered. "It is to him," Daeshik said. "You didn't soften him. You made him human." Silence fell. Maya closed her eyes. She saw Echo again, the man who listened, who laughed quietly, who dreamed. She picked up her bag. When she returned, the lodge was tense. Jae-won stood by the window, back rigid. He turned slowly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "You came back," he said hoarsely. "I'm not weak," she replied. "I won't be erased for loving you." Something in him broke. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms, forehead pressed to hers. "I'm scared," he admitted, "of what I'll lose." "I already lost it once," she said. "I won't do it again." If love makes you a target, would you still choose it? Comment below and subscribe now, because the final choice is coming. 6 months later, Cloud9 Cafe looked the same. But everything else had changed. Jae-won sat across from Maya, sunlight catching the edge of his smile. "I sold 3 properties," he said. "Pulled out of 2 routes." She raised an eyebrow. "You're really doing it. For us." She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I." He stood suddenly, dropping to one knee. Her breath caught. "Maya Johnson," he said, voice steady despite everything. "Will you?" A gunshot echoed outside. Screams followed. Jae-won spun, shielding her instinctively. The door burst open, and Maya realized their past wasn't done with them yet. Some love stories end in rings, others end in blood. The gunshot shattered the illusion first. Glass exploded inward as people screamed, chairs scraping violently against the cafe floor. Maya barely had time to gasp before Jae-won was on his feet, his body already moving in front of hers like instinct had taken over. "Down," he ordered, gripping her wrist and pulling her beneath the table. Another shot rang out. Maya's ears rang as splinters rained around them. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt, fear clawing up her throat as she pressed her face against the cold tile floor. "This was supposed to be over," she whispered, tears blurring her vision. Jae-won didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the shattered entrance, calculating, cold, lethal. Men rushed in, armed, frantic, desperate. Not rivals, not professionals. "They're amateurs," Jae-won muttered. "Desperate ones." Police sirens wailed in the distance. One of the men shouted something she couldn't hear over the chaos before turning his gun toward them. Jae-won moved. The sound of bodies hitting the floor echoed through the cafe. When it was over, the attackers were disarmed, screaming in pain as cafe staff and patrons sobbed in shock. Jae-won crouched in front of her, hands gripping her shoulders. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. She shook her head rapidly. "No." "Are you?" "I'm fine." His hands trembled slightly as he pulled her into his chest, holding her tightly like he'd just realized how close he'd come to losing her. The police arrived minutes later. Questions, statements, cameras flashing outside. Maya sat in a private room wrapped in a blanket, while officers spoke to Jae-won. She watched him through the glass, calm, controlled, untouchable. But she knew better, because when he finally walked back to her, his composure cracked. "I wanted to believe it was finished," he said quietly, "that I'd buried that life deep enough." She took his hand. "You're trying. That matters." "For how long?" he asked bitterly. "Until another ghost crawls out of the ground." Her chest tightened. This was the part no one warned you about when you fell in love with a dangerous man. The waiting, the fear, the scandals, the headlines, and the question that never went away, is love worth this? The next weeks were brutal. The cafe shooting reignited everything. The media tore into them like vultures. Crime lord's girlfriend caught in crossfire. Who is the woman behind Seo Jae-won? Maya stopped going outside alone. Her photography business stalled overnight. Clients canceled quietly. Friends stopped calling. Her mother cried on the phone, begging her to leave him, begging her to choose peace. Some nights, Maya sat, alone on the bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if love was supposed to feel like drowning. One evening, after another brutal news cycle, she finally said it. "Maybe we should stop," she whispered. Jae-won froze. "What?" "Maybe loving you costs too much," she continued, voice breaking. "Maybe this scandal, this life, maybe it's more than I can survive." He didn't argue. He just nodded slowly, pain carving deep lines into his face. "I will let you go," he said. "Even now. Even after everything." Her heart cracked open at how easily he said it. She stood abruptly and walked away before he could see her cry. That night, Maya sat on the bathroom floor, arms wrapped around herself. If she walked away now, she'd be safe, anonymous, ordinary, but empty. She thought about Echo, about the nights he'd talked her through self-doubt, about the way Jae-won looked at her like she was the only soft thing left in the world. Her phone buzzed, a message from Dae-shik. "Dae-shik, if you were my sister, I'd tell you to leave. But if you were his heart, I'd beg you to stay." Maya closed her eyes. If you were Maya, with the whole world watching, judging, tearing you apart, would you give up on love because of a scandal and disapproval from family and friends? Comment below. This one matters. And if you're still here, still feeling this story, subscribe now. You're exactly who this channel is for. The next morning, Maya made her decision. She found Jae-won on the balcony, staring out over the city like it might swallow him whole. "I won't run anymore," she said. He turned slowly. "I won't pretend loving you is easy," she continued. "But I won't abandon us because it's hard." His breath caught. She stepped closer. "I choose you. Not the Empire. Not the danger. You." Something in him finally gave way. He pulled her into his arms, forehead resting against hers. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "Maybe," she said softly. "But I love you anyway." 6 months later, the city felt different, quieter. Jae-won's name no longer dominated headlines. His empire had shifted. Art imports, property, legitimate businesses replacing blood-soaked roots. Maya's photography studio reopened slowly. Clients returned. Her work flourished. And one afternoon, he asked her to meet him where it all began. Cloud 9 Cafe. She walked in cautiously, memories flooding back. He stood near the window, dressed simply. No entourage, no guards. Just a man waiting for the woman he loved. "I almost didn't come," she admitted. "I was afraid you'd say no," he replied. He reached into his pocket, dropped to one knee. The cafe went silent. "Maya Johnson," he said, voice steady but eyes shining. "I won't promise you safety. I won't promise you an easy life." Her breath trembled. "But I will promise you truth, loyalty, and a love that chooses you every day." He opened the ring box. "Will you marry me?" Tears spilled freely as she nodded. "Yes,"
Oh my
she
God,
whispered.
yes.
"Yes." Applause erupted around them. Jae-won stood and kissed her gently, like the world wasn't watching, like nothing else existed. Later that night, Maya rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "Never," she replied. He smiled. Outside, the city hummed with danger and promise. Their future wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Some stories are about fantasy. This one is about choice. If this love moved you, if it broke you a little, if you believe love can survive even the darkest worlds, subscribe, like, share, turn on notifications, because the next story might be even more dangerous, and you won't want to miss what happens next.